everyone. I hope this finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey. Truly delighted to have this opportunity to interview the authentic, gifted, and loving medium, intuitive, and certified sound healer, Deb Levine. Deb, who will be speaking to us today from Scottsdale, Arizona, is originally from Philadelphia. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Advertising from Penn State University, followed by a 10-month stint at the Art Institute of Phoenix, where she received a diploma in baking and pastry arts. Even though Deb experienced a spiritual calling during her childhood, she stifled it to pursue a career in radio advertising sales and raise her two children. I'm looking forward to asking Deb about her journey to allowing her intuitive abilities to blossom, the development of her mediumship, her soul wisdom services that support both healing and empowerment, and surely more for what is going to be an interesting, uplifting, and enlightening interview. Hey, Deb, a warm, heartfelt welcome to Grief and Rebirth Podcast.
Hi, Irene. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Truly my pleasure. Let's start with this question. In what ways did you get glimpses of your connection to spirit and your intuitive abilities when you were a child?
Well, I was for sure always considered a sensitive child. I felt like I would pick up on the energies of other people. I wouldn't have known to call it that at the time, but if I was in a room with other peers and kids were upset, I would feel that, and I would just think that I had a bad day. But what I realized later on was that I was kind of taking on the energies of those around me. It was when I was 13, though, that I actually first heard from spirit, and it freaked me out. I remember exactly, it was.
Can you describe that to us?
Sure. It was a Memorial Day weekend. I had just come back from a barbecue with my family, and I shared one little bathroom with my older sister, and I had to go in and wash my face. And I was 13. So I remember going and leaning into the mirror to go pop a pimple. And I literally hear, now this is not hearing a voice in my head, an objective voice. It's hearing almost in my mind's ear is how I say it. Like you'd see something in your mind's eye. I heard a voice that was British, an older British woman. Now I'm 13, right? Freaked me the heck out because I thought, I know I have a subconscious. Even at 13, that was kind of a big idea at the time, but I figured my subconscious would not have a British accent. I'm a girl from Philadelphia. That's not an accent that I would hear someone talking in. So I couldn't even tell you what she said. She was an older woman. And I remember I literally recoiled like someone had just thrown hot water on my face. And I actually went like this, go away, go away, go away. I stuck my fingers in my ears. And that was the last I had heard from spirit for several years. But that was my first experience with the spirit world. Yeah.
Wow. How did your path to mediumship and intuitive work open to you then? And how was your grandmother's death a catalyst to rebuilding your life to be more in alignment with who you truly are and your life purpose? So what happened, darling?
That's a very loaded, that's a whole other podcast. No, there's that term used, the dark night of the soul, which sounds very dramatic. And for a lot of us, we experience it for different reasons. For me, I would say it was definitely midlife. I don't want to call it a crisis, but it was of sorts. I was diagnosed with ADHD. I had been a very anxious child. And if you find, I'm sure you interview a lot of mediums, intuitives. What's very fascinating is that a lot of us on this path of mediumship have had anxiety at one point in our life. I've had it since I was a kid, chronic anxiety. I'm sorry, we're gonna say.
No, why do you think that is?
I feel very, from my own perspective, I feel very certain it's because if you're a child and you're hearing from spirit, and some of the people I know have been hearing from spirit or actually seeing spirit since they were 2 years old, and it's frightening when you're a child, when you don't have an understanding of it. Now, I didn't see spirit objectively in my life. I still don't see objectively, but it wasn't coming to me like that. But I think feeling all the energy of people in the living and then feeling it from people that were no longer in their physical bodies is
what caused you to get anxious.
Yeah, it caused a lot of anxiety. Now, and I didn't have social anxiety. I was an extrovert, very outgoing. But it was the anxiousness was, it was debilitating at times. And what my therapist came to find out was that my anxiety was really kind of masking the ADHD, which is often, for your listeners so they know, and I'm not saying that we all have ADHD, but a lot of times for women in their mid 40s, it goes undiagnosed because it's seen as hormones, right? If we're perimenopause, it can be, oh, well, hormones, that's why you're forgetting things, or that's why you're kind of all over the place. The ADHD is actually what causes the anxiety, typically, if it's untreated. So that was really the catalyst. There were a lot of other things in my personal life that were happening at the time. But the main catalyst, and this actually happened at the same time that I lost my grandmother, which was, I have to wish her a happy birthday wherever she is right now. I know she's right here.
Right around us.
She's not smiling down on me because she hated my hair down. She said, Debbie, get your hair off your face. It looks horrible. She pulled up. So I said, I'm going to just go as me today, and Graham's going to have to deal with my hair. But when she died 4 years ago at 102, she was my very best friend. I felt her at her funeral. I had to speak in front of, there were probably 450 people there. I was a nervous wreck. And my mom asked me to read a letter I had written to her when she was 90. That was her birthday gift. What do you get a woman that has everything? So I wrote her sort of like a love letter of sorts, telling her how I felt about her. So all I had to do was read the letter. And I don't mind speaking in front of groups. I'm quite comfortable, but I was emotional. So I thought I was just going to break down. And I got up there and I stood at the podium, and I had the strangest calm come over me. And I literally hear my grandmother say, you're going to read that letter, dear, every word, let them hear everything. And I thought, oh my God, because Graham would not want anyone to miss out on one darn word said about her, I can assure you. And the best way to say it is I felt her. Her presence was everywhere. And my grandmother at like 4'10" had such a huge presence. She'd waggle her little finger at you, but man, she was such a huge, huge presence and energy when she was living. And I could feel that presence even after she had died. And that, at the same time of my life sort of breaking down with this ADHD diagnosis and this severe anxiety, it was sort of the perfect storm. That's kind of how it all began. If that answers your question.
So you have a wonderful story about the Bridging Heaven and Earth seminar in Scottsdale, Arizona, and how life-changing that was for you. And that was sort of at the beginning of your path now, right?
It was really, well, it was the beginning of I call it my official path in terms of working with a mentor. Although this was my second mentor. So my first mentor, which many of your guests may know, is the lovely Suzanne Giesman. I have so much to be grateful for her. And Suzanne Giesman is the one who felt guided to direct me to the amazing Suzanne Wilson, also known as the Carefree Medium here in Carefree, Arizona. It's crazy how I had a friend in New Jersey, of all places, who received an email. I don't like to say crazy. I like to say synchronous and amazing. She's not on any list. She has no idea who Suzanne Wilson is. She gets an email with a flyer about this Bridging Heaven and Earth weekend. Emails me. She says, Deb, I have no idea how I would even receive this. I just feel nudged to send this email to you. I don't know anything about Suzanne. And in that same week, Suzanne Giesman, we're emailing about something. She says, Deb, I feel guided to tell you Suzanne Wilson is going to be having a small group mentorship. It's like I think it was a 6-month program. I need to tell you to sign up for that. She was just starting. Suzanne Wilson was just accumulating students, and she was only taking maybe 8 students. I, sight unseen, went to her website, meaning I knew nothing about her, went to her website, clicked on the link, signed up for the course, knowing nothing about her. That was one of the most spontaneous things I'd ever done.
I would say.
And then when my friend tells me there's this, so I asked Suzanne Giesman, I said, well, I just get an email from a friend announcing this Bridging Heaven and Earth. Do you think it would be worthwhile to go? And she says, absolutely. You'll see her live. So it was a weekend long event. And part of the event was she was doing platform mediumship demonstration with the other medium that was there from Tucson, Tina Powers. So this is the second day. It's in the morning. I'm driving there, and I say in my mind to all of my loved ones in spirit, I don't need to receive any messages at this event. There were people here that were literally fresh in grief. There were a lot of folks that had lost children, a lot of people from the Helping Parents Heal community. I know there was a woman in the row next to me. Her husband had passed 5 days before. Now, I'm one of the lucky ones. I have grandparents in the spirit world, and that was it. And I said, I do not need to hear from anybody. Please allow these people to get messages, and I will just, bear witness. What do you know? We're in this. Suzanne Wilson starts. She's got her head microphone on. She's on the little platform, and they tell us it's being recorded. And if you can take the spirit contact, please raise your hand and stand up. So Suzanne starts walking back and forth, and she says right away, she says, oh, I have a woman here and she has a huge personality. Oh, okay. And she's saying the name Reba. I hear Reba McEntire. And I'm sitting here going, okay, please let someone raise their hand. And she says, oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to tell you it's not the country music singer Reba McEntire. It's the name Reba. And it's like on megaphone. It sounded, does anyone take the name Reba? Reba is my grandmother's name, not the most common name. Her given name is Rebecca. She was only referred to as Reba. I'm looking around going, someone else must be raising their hand. And I go like this. And I hear someone say, put your hand up higher. And they come running over to me. They put a microphone in my hand. They tell me to stand up. And I'm thinking, what's happening here? Suzanne Wilson proceeds to give me a contact from my grandmother. There is no way on this earth she could have known the things that she was giving me the information on, because something had happened in a meditation for me that week. And the words that Suzanne repeated from my grandmother were words that I had heard, that I'd been guided in a meditation that week. No one could have known that. In addition to other things, something about my son, then my grandfather was there with her. My knees were knocking together. People around me are crying. I'm crying. Now, I'm a medium at this point. I wasn't a professional medium, but I had been doing readings for people literally in my closet. So I knew what this experience was like from the medium's side. But to be in the opposite, to be in the other shoes and to experience that, the love of the spirit world, I have the chills now as I say it. I could feel my grandmother's presence coming through Suzanne in a way that was so powerful. It was like nothing I could even describe in words.
And typical for your grandmother, she didn't listen to you when you said, I don't need it.
Oh,
She was like, oh, no, are you kidding?
Reba got to the front of the line.
I'm going to the heck with all this. It should be her personality.
It was, in fact, the way Suzanne said it, she was starting to kind of explain how it was going to work. And she's like, oh, excuse me. She says, I'm sorry. I have a woman here that's very insistent. She kind of got to the front of the line. And the humor, the irony and the humor of that did not hit me until after she brought my grandmother through. That even in the way she came through, that Suzanne brought her through, was so my grandmother, the essence, the personality, in addition to the evidential information she gave me. And I was able to really get a taste of just how powerful mediumship, when it's done well and ethically, and when it's really done with love, just how powerful it was. Life altering. I'll tell you why. Now, I had said, please, I don't need messages. Give it to the folks that need it. I didn't realize how badly I needed it. I was in this dark night of the soul. I was at a crossroads. I didn't know where I was going. Was I supposed to embark on this path of mediumship and healing for others? I didn't know what to do. My grandmother's validation was literally life-changing. And yet she couldn't give it to me because she wasn't here in the physical, but she could still give it to me. And I have chills as I say that, because that tells us that our loved ones can very much be there to validate, to encourage, to offer us that support. I felt it. I'm a medium. You don't have to be a medium to feel that, but it just shows you we're all human beings. And I got to experience that love of the spirit world. And it was life-changing for me. It truly was.
It's a wonderful story. And it is true, when people come through, they keep their personalities.
Oh,
I always know, because my husband had an amazing personality. When he comes through with a sense of humor. And I always, I know.
Yeah.
Please tell us about the first time you began to trust yourself in your mediumship via the most spontaneous thing. Oh, that was the most spontaneous thing you'd ever done.
Well, before that, when the reason I met Suzanne Giesman was I was guided. I didn't know anything about Suzanne Giesman. And she was demonstrating in Fruitland Lakes, Florida. I'd never even heard of Fruitland Lakes, Florida. Here I am in Phoenix, Arizona. I know someone else that says, Deb, I don't know. This is actually, I have a friend in the Helping Parents Heal organization, and she knew Suzanne Giesman and Mavis Patilla, who Suzanne was going to be demonstrating with. She emails me this flyer about this 2-hour demo in Florida on a Sunday.
You're living in Arizona at the time.
Living in Arizona.
Right?
My children are young, and my husband then was traveling all around. We don't have family in Arizona. So I needed to figure out what to do with my kids. I heard I was nudged. You need to get on that plane. You're going to book a flight and you're going to go see Suzanne and Mavis speak. And I thought, I felt not like, I think Mavis, because there was something about Mavis that actually reminded me of my gram. There was, and she would hold this tissue. My grandma used to tuck a tissue in her watch, and the way Mavis painted her nails, my grandmother always had these really dark colored nails. Something about her vibe just reminded me of Graham. I'm on the plane on the 5-hour flight from Phoenix to Florida, and I hear, you're not going to see Mavis. You're actually going to see Suzanne. And I thought, because I looked up Suzanne's website and she was so official and accomplished. And I thought, nah, she's not really woo-woo enough for me. I like a little bit more woo-woo, not totally, but she's just so, she seems so bright and scientific and factual. And I don't know if I gel with her. Well, she's also the warmest, loveliest person. As if you've experienced her, she's wonderful. I hear, what does that mean? She's going to be a teacher and she's going to know that you're there. I don't know how to explain. I flew, I was in Florida for not even 24 hours there and back. I stood in line outside, even though I had a ticket. The ticket was $30. The plane ticket was a lot more. I didn't care. I knew I had to be there. And I waited in line at the end for her to sign the book I'd had of hers that I bought before I went. And we connected. We talked for maybe 4 minutes. And there was something there. She said, I think you should come to my seminar. She was holding a Mediumship 1 seminar. The first one I went to was in San Diego. The next one was in San Jose. And I said, well, I have 2 young kids. She's like, I think you'll find a way to get there. And I did. It was a month later, no, 3 weeks later after seeing her at Ocean Lakes, that I then announced that I'm going to leave my family for the weekend and fly to San Diego, which from Phoenix is not that far, but I was not the mom that ever went away from my kids. I just was always at home. I didn't do the girls' trip. So for me to go anywhere away from my young children was a big deal. For me to go anywhere based on what I called it then was on a hunch. It was really a nudge. I call it now, like I call them spirit nudges. I was nudged. That was my intuition. That was my soul wisdom saying, you got to get on that plane and go. And I listened. That's when I knew I really trusted myself.
That's fabulous. So you talk about, as a medium and an intuitive, that your intention is that a session with you serves as a gentle soul excavation and catalyst for growth. Could you explain that to us, please, Deb?
Sure. And it sounds, I realized when I wrote it, it sounds a little dramatic in that, what is a soul excavation? I say it, and I say gentle, because if you think of excavating, at a construction site, you think of like a big, what are they called? Like the crane.
Yeah, like the claw, and it's
the claw that goes in and
shoveling out
the dirt, right? Well, what I like to think of a mediumship session, and I call mine sessions and not readings, and that's intentional, because and it's not to diminish when a medium would call it a reading, because I understand why. We're reading the soul of a loved one in spirit. I'm reading the energy of my client in front of me in the physical. But within a session, there's a lot that goes on. I'm not just reading the soul of a loved one. A soul excavation is, I am, by doing the intuitive work, by connecting with my client and having them that ability to talk back as far as childhood, and maybe some inner child stuff comes up. That's the place that we have to go. I always refer to as getting into the muck. So we have to gently get through that muck of either what's happened in our childhood or what's happened on our journey. Getting through that muck, it's not to bring up wounds. It's to sort of, I'd say it's almost like pulling up the gems. Like, what can you find when you excavate? Well, there's a lot of things, beautiful things that you can find. And some of those things are wounds in there. But until we go through and we really gently excavate, we're living up here where everything may not be okay, but that's not where the real meat of it is. The meat of it is getting into that soul and gently excavating. And when we do that work, when we go through,
you pull out energetically, do you pull out some of the,
not that I'm, well, no, it's not that I'm pulling that out in that way. It's that I'm unearthing them.
You're revealing them.
I am now what I say is, my client knows themselves better than I do, because they are in their own skin. However, sometimes we need that gentle reminder, because either we're not willing to look there, it's too painful, or we need someone to help facilitate that. That's why I look at myself as a facilitator in that process. That's why I also say, when a client comes to me, come as open as you can. If you really want to be able to get into the work, if you're open, I'll have someone say to me, no, I'm not hurting. I'm fine. I'm fine. I see that and I see you smile, but I am an intuitive. So I feel into that pain. Now, as an intuitive, an ethical intuitive, my job is also to know when can I go in and excavate, because not everybody's ready. And I'm not the medium that's going to say, I don't care if you're ready. I'm going to bring my bulldozer in anyway. That's not what it's about. I can feel into whether or not someone's ready. And so it's gently going through. My client will 9 times out of 10, they may not have it in their conscious mind, but on the subconscious, they're aware of it. They just haven't excavated. They haven't brought it up. So I go in and bring it up. And then I say, well, what do we do with that? That's not for me. That's why I'm not healing them. They then get to take that and decide, what do I want to do with that? And that's where the spirit world comes into play. That's why I call it a session, because it's a mix of the messages and the guidance and the support or validation from their loved ones that have passed that will help whatever that excavation has brought up. And what then do they want to do with that? That's where that excavation comes into play.
Well, that's really interesting because there are so many mediums. And I mean, I've interviewed so many amazing mediums who mostly come from the experiential side, but you give them this extra other perk. Not only do you do the experiential, but you can actually help them with their issues and different things that are going on and bring it to the surface. I think that's wonderful.
When what I like, and I say this on my website, I always tell clients, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a grief counselor. What I'm doing is it's almost like I'm holding space. It's like having
you identify it, and then they can go take it and then decide what they're going to do with it.
And they can leave and they can say, thank you. Oh yes, this was helpful. And I may never see them again, but I tend to have a lot of repeat clients only because, and what is the most joyful for me, and I had this recently when I've seen someone 4 times, let's say within a year, and I can literally feel their energy change. And I love this with women, not that I tend to have, for some reason, more female clients than male for whatever reason. When I see them come on screen and they are so much more standing in their power, and it's like layers have been shed, that's the work that they've done. And that's, in certain jobs, you get a bonus. That's my bonus.
The reward. Yeah.
Oh, kind of like when I see that from someone and I see that light shining, like from their eyes, like that knowing, like I did this for me. That's the best thing ever.
The best thing.
They're on their own path. It's the best.
Wonderful. That's wonderful, Deb. All right. So tell us how you see and sense the deceased, because everybody sees, some people use all 5 clairs, some people use 3 clairs,
Yes.
How's it happen for you?
So it's all of the above. And then the way I describe it is, it's very hard to articulate. So I am clairvoyant. I do have clear seeing, subjective, not objective. So I will not see your husband physically next to you. I see it in my mind's eye. Like, explain to people, if I told you to remember your favorite scene from a movie, you could do that right now. You could picture the actors and what they're saying, but you're not actually seeing it, right? Play out in front of you. I do have clairaudience, which is clear hearing. I have claircognizance, which is that clear knowing, clairsentience, that clear feeling. And then there, clairalience, I have used a handful of times where I've smelled a barbecue grill. I knew this man was like a barbecue master because I could smell it. I smelled the smell of a cigar. I've smelled perfume. I smell my grandmother's perfume all the time. I'll get in my car. I'm like, hey, Graham, what you doing? So I have all those clairs, but the best way to describe it is, this is just me, because we all work differently and there is no better or no worse. So just because there is room for all of us, I hate the fact that it feels like this.
I so agree with you. I want to make that statement because here I am on the podcast and there are other people who have podcasts and all, and I don't do it as competition.
No,
I think we're all contributing to the collective and getting the word out. I applaud everyone who's doing, because maybe someone is more pulled towards one person than another. And I'm grateful for the ones who are coming here, who we're helping. That's how I see it.
I say there's a medium for every person and a person for every medium. I may not be the medium for some of your listeners, and that's okay. If someone comes to me and I don't feel worth it, I will refer them to 3 ethical, beautifully intended mediums that I feel that could help them. There is space for everybody. So when I speak, I just like people to know this is my experience, my perspective, the way it happens for me. I don't experience things now separate from me. So if I'm bringing through, let's say your mom is in the spirit world and I were bringing your mom through, I don't see her separately. Like, oh, I see your mom and I can describe how she's dressed. It's happening. It's this knowing, it's this sensing, like the essence of your mom is somehow coming through me. I will have clients say, that was so weird, Deb, you didn't look like you. Now, I don't suddenly look like your mother. But my mannerisms, I had a reading a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I want to sit back and I want to chain smoke. And I wanted to tap the table. And I said, she would have played blackjack or poker. I don't play cards. I didn't know. And my client starts crying and laughing. She's like, oh my God, my grandmother was this fierce chain smoker and she was a hardcore blackjack player. So I wasn't describing it as something I was seeing. It was like happening. I was embodying, or I'm not embodying, I was feeling the essence so close of their loved one in spirit, the energy, that's how it comes for me. So it's not even something that I can, when it's happening, that I can separate, because it's like, it's all happening really quickly. That, and at the same time, the knowing, how do I know? I don't know. I just know. And all of that, it all comes from trusting the self and trusting the spirit world. Those two things have to be aligned. If not, then it won't work for me.
Right. I love how also you say that if you find, if it doesn't work for you, you find other people who have integrity, because that's a big deal, because unfortunately some people give this a bad name, and it's so important for us.
Yes.
On both levels, in my world too, it's so important for us to find people who have integrity. It's like, and that people can discern who's real and who is has other motivations or whatever.
And I want to say, it doesn't mean because someone's style, everyone stylistically is going to be different from me, because they're not me, and I can't be like them because I'm not them. It doesn't mean because someone's mediumship style is different that they're not ethical or legitimate. It's that the intention to serve the spirit world, to serve our clients, not the ego. When I am in a session with a client, I'm not worried about, well, I hope I look good to them. I hope I can, pull the all the evidence out of the air so that they think. It's not about me. I have to I leave the building. I don't. I mean, I'm here. I'm a passive participant in the experience, but this experience is for my client and for their loved ones in the spirit world. It's not about me and how, I killed that session. That's ego. And there is no place for ego. So I just encourage your listeners, whatever medium intuitive that they seek out, so long as they resonate with that person and the way in which they do it, and so long as that session, the client feels like it was truly for them, it doesn't matter what the style is. It's the style that works for your client. Again, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. The woman down the street isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea. People are going to gravitate to us because, just like in life, right? I mean, if you go into a group of people,
absolutely true,
you're going to gravitate toward, you just connect with certain people,
absolutely
personality wise. So that's what it's about.
So, okay. So now here's a little bit of a complex question, because I think I put 3 questions in one paragraph. Okay. You say that the true purpose of your mediumship is to guide a person to the true essence of who that person is on a soul level. What do you mean by true essence? And how do you help a person discover his or her soul's wisdom and what you call divine magic?
Okay, let's see if I can break that up.
We have to break that down.
I tend to feel like a lot of us, and I include myself in this before I did a lot of work in therapy and self-development work in mediumship. A lot of us live, I always say we live out here, meaning we have a persona, right? That we show to the world. If I were going to a PTA meeting, I'm Deb Levine, the PTA vice president, and I'm, my kid's mom, and I show up this way, but maybe at home I show up a different way. The key, and I don't even remember now the first question you asked. I think I'm answering.
What is the true essence? What do you mean by the true essence?
So the true essence is who you truly are on the soul level, meaning when you are aligned with who you are, when you have aligned your shadow and your light, all the things that make me Deb, not just the things I show to the world because this looks good out here. There's plenty of stuff in here that's really good. And there's plenty of stuff that I need to work on as a human being. All of that encompasses my soul and who I am, the essence of me.
That's your essence, right?
But I need to show up as that person. How I am in this
complete picture. It's a complete picture.
And how I am, the complete picture that I'm giving to you right now, Irene, and the complete picture that I'm going to show the guy in my office in an hour, and the complete picture I'm going to be when I'm on the phone with my parents later today. I'm not going to sit here with you and go, hello, yes, I'm a medium. And then go home and be like, I'm me. I'm like this, and I'm chatty and fast talking. This is who I am, whether I'm here with you on Zoom or whether I'm with my best friend talking on the phone. That to me is the essence of me, that I'm aligned with my true self. I'm not showing you one thing. I'm showing the world exactly what I show myself.
That's
I'm
why I
living
call
in
you
my-
authentic. You are authentic.
living in your truth is to
Yes,
me
you're
what
living.
authenticity is. And then what was the second part? Because I
And
don't
how
know.
do you help a person discover his or her soul wisdom and what you call divine magic?
Well, I think what saddens me is I often, and I say that I do have a lot of female clients. I have female clients that we all have a beautiful light within us. Sometimes we just need a battery recharge, right? The light's been there. We all start out as light, if that's how you want to look at it. And our circumstances, the story of who we are, has affected us, whether we've experienced grief, whether we've been so hard on ourselves, or whether we've had people talk to us in a way in childhood. Let's say, you're not good enough. You can't be X, Y, or Z. All of those things contribute to the dimming of our light. Well, we can say that I just wish someone would light me up. That is fleeting, because when that light is coming from an external place, it can be extinguished very quickly.
Absolutely.
When you know how to be your own battery charger, when you have that match and you can reignite your own flame, that is when your divine magic can happen all the time. But a lot of times we forget our own magic. It does not mean that it's not there. We all have it. And I have to say, in conjunction with this, and people say, oh, it's just so amazing, but you have this gift of mediumship and I don't. We all have gifts. My plumber, he's done things with my shower pressure. I have no idea my way around the workings of the pipes within my house. This man has that gift. That's one of the things that's magical for him. An artist, what they paint. I can't even draw a stick figure. We all have a divine.
Absolutely right.
Some people, this kills me. I used to, before I worked outside the home, people would say, well, what do you do? And it makes me cringe when I say this. I would say, oh, I'm just a mom. And I had a friend that pulled me aside. She said, I need you to do me and yourself a favor, because she was a stay-at-home mom too. You have to take out that word just. You are a mom. You are helping emotionally support these young people who are going to grow up to be what the world is comprised of. So that's not just anything. And I think a lot of us consider ourselves, I'm just fill in the blank. That's not being aware of our own divine magic. So the conjunction or if we combine all those three questions of what you asked, when we are reignited to our soul's purpose, when we have someone bear witness to us, I'm a reflection for someone. Maybe you've forgotten your own magic, but I'm here to tell you that it's there. And in that soul excavation, going back to the other question, when things are brought up, like a lot of people think, oh, soul excavation, you're going to bring out the skeletons in my closet. These are amazing things that have been buried. You have a way of just being present for people. And you have I might say, I feel like you have this connection to social work or psychology. And they might say, what's funny, because I took a couple classes in social work, but I never did anything with it. People may forget what their own magic is, but we all have it. And that's the privilege of what I get to do, is really be that mirror to reflect what someone's magic is. Now, I can't go out and work to kind of make that magic happen for every client. That's their work. I can't do soul work for other people.
You identify for them.
I'm identifying. And when you have a witness, there is something so empowering about all we want. This is my perspective. All we want as human beings is for someone to really see us, not this, to see us here on the soul level. That is so crucial, because when we're seen for all the parts, not just the parts that look bright and shiny and look great on Facebook and social media, for the parts where we're having a really hard time, or our anxiety is really acting up, or our depression is kicking in, that does not make us unlovable. And I feel like sometimes, I'm a stranger when someone comes into my office or when I work with them on Zoom, but when my clients leave, we're not strangers, because when someone bears witness and really validates who you are, that's all we want as human beings. And that sometimes is all it takes for that magic to be reignited within someone's soul.
That's beautiful. And it's so true. That's so true. And I feel like that happens with the podcast also.
Absolutely.
A lot of people I interview come out, and it's wonderful. And it helps so many people. Yep. Mm-hmm. So you talk a lot about the shadow and the light.
Yeah.
In what ways have you learned to embrace and accept all that makes you whole, both the shadow and the light? And how has this affected your mediumship and intuitive work?
Oh, that's a huge question. I wrestled with a lot of things since I was 10. Distorted body image. I was told by a pediatrician at the age of 10 in front of my mother that I was overweight. Well, you tell a girl at 10 years old, and even if my mom, thank God, had the wherewithal, and she said, "Oh, Debbie, don't listen to the doctor. Your body is growing and changing." But those words, that's why when people say words, words don't really sting, they don't last. Words can last more than anything. And maybe it wasn't from a doctor. Maybe someone heard that from a parent. And thankfully, I was blessed with loving and supportive parents. And like I said, my mom had the wherewithal to say, "Don't listen to him." But those words already entered me. So I wrestled a lot with body image. I wrestled with anxiety. And there were so many ways in which I did not like myself. When I looked in the mirror, I was such a loud critic. I never gave myself compliments about, I'm not talking about looks, like, you're a good person. You're a dear friend. You're loyal. You're honest. You're caring. It was, "Oh, you're too fat," or "You're not smart enough." Yeah, you have a pimple, right? Or "You're not as successful as all your friends." That voice, that's what I called of all the shadow parts, was so deafening that it negated the light. And when I, on and off in therapy for years, and doing all that work, and anxiety was revolving around all of this stuff too. When I finally accepted that in order to be truly aligned with myself, in order to show up as I am, I have to be okay with both of those parts of me. I always was seeking validation and acceptance from everybody else. And I just did a video of this actually on my my Facebook page, literally yesterday. I needed all of the experts. I call them experts in my life. That would be my parents, my best friends, my older sister. I didn't check in with myself. I needed to know what they thought. Was this a good move for my life? Am I okay? Am I enough? But they all did, because they love me. Yes, Deb, yes. But I never believed that. So those words never sunk in. And that was the shadow and light. And you said, how did that accept my mediumship? When I finally learned that duality is what makes me the imperfectly perfect human I am, I'm like, okay, this stuff is kind of crappy. But now, does that mean I just say, well, good, I'm aware of it, so I don't have to do anything about it? No, my work is never done. None of us, all of our work continues, right? If we want to grow,
work in progress all the time.
And souls can evolve, in my mind, on the other side, but we can certainly do our part to evolve here. And I'm always working on myself, having that awareness. Now I'm able to step outside of myself and say, ooh, that reaction, why did I react that way? Okay, that was a little extreme. What was it that triggered me? And I'm able to go through all of that. Why that was so important and critical for my mediumship. If I do not accept that duality that is me, that shadow and the light of myself, how can I learn? How can I accept? And okay, the shadow and the light I consider to be the truth of myself. If I can't accept the truth of myself, how will I be able to accept the truth of your loved ones in the spirit world? How will I be able to tap into the truth of you, my client? I can't. That's why no matter who your people watching this go out and find as a medium, make sure it's someone that has really not just, oh, I did my work. My clients know I'm not done my work. I am a perfectly imperfect human being. I'm not the divine. I come from the divine like we all do, but I'm a human being just like you. I get road rage if I'm driving sometimes, and I wake up in a crappy mood. I tell people I am not, to be put on a pedestal, but I have self-awareness, and I have accepted both parts of me. I have accepted the truth of who I am. I have done the work, and I am willing and have been willing to go there in that muck and excavate all that stuff in my own soul. So that allowed me to really hear, see, feel, and sense that truth of the spirit world. And that was when my mediumship, it was like, pooh, opened up in a way that I could never have imagined. I got so much deeper into sessions with clients because I went deeper into myself. And in my mind, for me, for my mediumship, that was the only way that could happen.
Yeah. Well, I think also when you talk about that, it also keeps you from being judgmental of other people, because people can come to you with anything that they have to say or anything that's gone on or anything. And because you see your own shadow, how can you judge someone else's?
Irene, that is That's such a fabulous point. No one else has raised that. I'm really glad you said that, because it is critical as a medium. Not only that I not, and I say this in my sort of like my little 5-minute spiel I do before I get started with a client, this is a judge-free Zoom room or a judge-free space. And I say, I will not judge you, but I ask my clients, please leave judgment of yourself out the door. There is no room for judgment.
Right.
I have had loved ones that have abused my client, the loved ones that have passed. I have had all sorts of things. There is no judgment on my end, because we are all here to do our work, and everyone's work is different. So if I'm judging, oh, you did that loved one in spirit is not going to come through me. Would you want to play whisper down the lane with someone that was really judgy and negative? No, I don't want to deal with that in the physical. I certainly don't want to deal with that if I'm a spirit person either.
So now here's a question that's not on my list, and I want to ask you about this. If someone comes through from the other side and they were abusive or malevolent to someone, now usually they're coming through to apologize because they've gotten a life review and they saw what happened, right? What is the effect of that? Is that supposed to get the person, the sitter, to go for healing or to understand? I mean, how does that work?
Okay, well, yeah, this is just my perspective in the
And
experience.
I've witnessed this happening once. I was in a gallery when a man came through and he had died, and he had said horribly abusive things to his child. And she was there crying hysterically because her father said these awful things, and she said awful things back to him the night before he unexpectedly died.
Oh.
And it was such a healing that went on. So how do you feel about that? What happens? Like the guy, all right, he was terrible.
He was terrible. Now, sometimes what you really have to be careful with, and the loved ones that have come through with me that have been physically abusive to my adult clients, they don't expect forgiveness. What they're doing is they're taking ownership. And when someone that has been abusive to a client takes ownership, it's up to my client to decide whether or not they choose to forgive. But when you hear someone admit, this is where actually huge healing takes place. You were not the problem. This wasn't about you. Like, I'll have clients that say, I was never, like, these are clients that as adults, they're perfectionists. They're so hard on themselves. They never think they're good enough because they had a parent that said, you're never going to amount to anything. You're stupid. You're horrible, blah, blah, blah. Emotional abuse tends to be some of the worst that I've had.
Right.
Because my adult client sees themselves through their deceased parents' lens that spew these horrible things. So when ownership is taken, when the deceased loved one says, this wasn't okay, and I need you to know, I'm aware that it wasn't okay, but I want you to understand, this is how I was raised. This is what happened to me. Maybe my adult client didn't know that they were, what their parents' childhood was like. So there is an ability then to let go, but I never say that automatically the spirit person's like, oh, I need you to forgive me, because the soul does like forgiveness at times, depending on who it is. But if that's up to the client here in the physical to say, I'm not ready to offer forgiveness, but wow, what a relief to have him say, it wasn't you. And it just happened 2 weeks ago. I had a loved one say, this was a mom who was really unkind to her daughter and very critical. The daughter never thought she could do anything good enough. She said, I was lucky to have you as my child, only I didn't realize how lucky I was then because I was narcissistic to see it. I could energetically feel this, like it was almost like her shoulders started like this. I could feel the release, and she emotionally released. And does that mean she walks out like, oh, great, I'm healed? It means that the healing process that can take place, she would not, if she hadn't met with a medium, and if she wasn't able to connect herself with, which some people can that aren't mediums, she wasn't able to connect with her loved one herself. Now she received that validation, like, I am okay. I was good enough. I was a great daughter. My mom was lucky to have me. It was her issues. She was the trigger. Her child triggered her mother. But that wasn't the child's fault, And so that's where so much healing can take place.
And I think this is also part of the healing for the person on the other side.
100%.
Because they're involved in healing, and they've gotten the picture of what happened.
And that it is for, like I said, my job is to not only serve my clients, it is to serve the spirit world. We can grow and evolve.
Well, we're there.
It's not done. I mean, this is Earth School, but when Earth School ends and our physical body stops working, the soul is still evolving.
It's on. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So let me ask you this. Tell us about how you became a certified sound healer. What is sound healing and how do you use sound healing to help people heal?
So sound
I
healing.
see ya, I see ya, I see ya.
Oh, my gong.
You're
That's my
gone,
gong.
man.
I have my
Speaking of
crystal
sound
bowl.
healing.
Yeah, I have my crystal bowl at home. I don't leave that in my office because it's one of the only really precious things I own. So I keep it at home locked up. But I actually utilize sound healing as really as an emotional release for myself when I was in the crux of my, dark night of the soul. I went weekly to a Kundalini studio that unfortunately had to close down after COVID in North Scottsdale. And I faithfully went on Sundays to what was called a sound bath or a sound journey. And if your clients haven't done it, it is the most, if nothing else, it's the most relaxing hour you'll ever have. And maybe I was just escaping the noise of young kids at the time, but you essentially lay on a yoga mat in a darkened room with a blanket over you because the body temperature often drops. It gets a little chilly. So we always have a blanket. And there are instruments of healing. I have a gong. I have right here. I'm going to show you this. This is my ocean drum.
Oh, wow.
So it sounds like the ocean.
Yeah.
I was a girl that grew up going down the shore to the Jersey Shore. So I love the
I can relate.
I have a rain stick. There's a lot of instruments. So sound affects us vibrationally. And, I've watched YouTube videos on this and it's really incredible how sound can alter things on the cellular level. And it's not that you actually necessarily walk out of a sound healing with no physical ailments, but it does the most for stress and for emotional healing. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it, but it can trigger almost like an emotional opening, a release. And even sound is frequency, and that frequency, you can feel it in your body. Even if I were to bang, if I were to use my mallet and hit that gong, even when the actual sound stops, you can actually still feel the waves, the vibration through your body cellularly. And it was so profound. I would have these, I call them downloads. And I was a medium then, but I would finish the sound bath and I would go into my car and I wasn't able to drive home. It was almost like, and I don't take hallucinogenic drugs, but it's what I imagine them to be like. It's like taking a hallucinogenic drug without, and I would sit in my car and have to really ground, and I would keep a notebook and I would take notes. For me, it was an opening. It was an opening to a greater consciousness. I would leave feeling so relaxed and so at peace. So when I found that my yoga studio was offering a certification workshop weekend, this happened to be, we got so lucky. It was literally 2 weeks before Life Here kind of closed down for COVID. I decided, I didn't know why. I have a friend of mine, a dear friend who's a Reiki master. She encouraged me to go with her. And I thought, well, I don't need to teach it, but I didn't really know. Again, this was a nudge. I just felt like I needed to do it, but I like to learn things from the opposite end. So here I was reaping the benefits of it. I was more curious then about how it worked, how it served as such a meditative experience. And so I got certified in it. And what was so cool was I bought my gong right before COVID, and I just gifted friends and family. And then I would gift people that I knew, and I'd say, if you have someone that you feel could use, there was a lot of tension and stress during COVID.
Absolutely.
Reach out to me, and I'd love to just do it.
You do this online also? If a person would like to.
I do it online, but I will say sound is much better experienced when it's live in person. So it is a very small element of what I do. I think maybe once, God willing, once COVID is really behind us, I can do it outside. So it's the kind of thing that can be done safely, like a yoga class would be on the grass, but the acoustics really matter with sound. That's why my yoga studio.
Right. I get that. Totally.
Yeah.
So speaking of what you do online, tell us about your soul wisdom services that support healing and empowerment.
So essentially I offer, like I say, I call them sessions, and it's a 45-minute session. And as I call them, soul excavations, I really want people to know, because I've had people email me and say, and I like no information, by the way. I think there's this myth that, oh, mediums do cold readings. You look us up and you find everything out about us. You're going to hear it from me straight. And hopefully you'll see that I'm about as blunt as one can be, and as honest as one can be. It is so much harder to know information about clients. I don't even want to know someone's last name, because then we start using the mind. My mind, my conscious mind, has no business in a session. If you go into a coffee shop and I tell you to look at that guy over there sitting with the tank top and the chains and the tattoos, you're going to assume all these things about this guy. Oh, maybe he's a biker. Well, he might actually own a corporate law firm. Just because he has tattoos doesn't mean that he can't, be a lawyer.
Right.
Because we use our conscious mind. So when someone reaches out to me and says, Deb, I'd like to book a session with you. I lost my father a year ago, so I'd really like you to make contact with him. What I want people to understand, there are mediums that will do it's what's called a made to order. You want to hear from your husband, I will bring him through. That is just not how I work. Because what I want for my clients, or what my intention is that every person that meets with me receives what they need for their best and highest good. I can't know that because I've never met you before. Your loved ones in the spirit world sure do know that. So let's say you come in and you say, I want to hear from Saul. I feel like I would just love to hear from him. If he's the loved one in spirit that the spirit world feels that you need, not want to hear from for your best and highest good, then that's who's going to come through. But maybe you're in need of some extra support right now for whatever reason. And your grandmother was the person you would go to when she was here in the living. She was that one that would always support you in all of your endeavors.
Yeah.
Well, and then it might be Graham that comes through. I don't have control of that, nor do I try to control that. It's always about the intention that you receive. A session has to be helpful, hopeful, and or healing. There's no dark energy or this, or we're going to extract that. Not about that at all. The idea is that you leave feeling peaceful in some way. And again, I can't make this happen. I'm a facilitator of this. So long as someone comes open, it's a 45-minute session. I work with people all across the world, so we can do it on Zoom. It's not better to meet me in person as it is on Zoom. I've had equally amazing sessions with someone that's, in Florida and I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, than it is when someone comes into my office.
Right. So now that people want to see you and get a session, how do they get a hold of you?
My website is probably the easiest way. If you go on to soulwisdom.com, because Soul Wisdom was taken. So thesoulwisdom.com, there is a place there where you can email me, or my email is thesoulwisdom@gmail.com, but that's already on my website. So if you hit my website, there's a phone number. I will not talk to people on the phone though. People might think this is strange. I've had people leave messages and I text back, because I can pick up too much energy even from hearing someone's voice. And there are mediums that do this. I don't do pre-readings. I'm not going to get information ahead of time and then spit it back to you when I'm in a session with you. Everything is going to happen live. I do not tap in ahead of time. I like people to know that too.
Deb, do you go by Deb Levine or Deb Razor?
I go by Deb Levine.
Levine. So if they go on to Deb Levine Medium, that will come up on Google and all that jazz.
Yes, it should. And on Facebook, I am Deb Levine. I have it's a Soul Wisdom page. It's Soul Wisdom AZ, I believe. If you
the Soul Wisdom will get them there, but if they don't remember that, they can hit.
And on Facebook, I'm Deb Levine, correct. And on Instagram, I'm simply Soul Wisdom AZ. So they can find me that way.
Okay, great. And what would you like to tell our Grief and Rebirth podcast audience about the importance of healing? Including why you say that healing does not have a formal beginning and an end, which I really understand what you're trying to say, but please explain that to everybody.
Well, and I did a video once on this because I had someone ask me, we were talking about healing versus being cured of something, and when we think of a cure, we think of curing a physical ailment. Cure in my mind means to put a stop or an end to something. We want to cure world hunger, right? We want to cure cancer. But can I be cured of what emotionally ailed me? Can I be cured of my anxiety, or could someone be cured of their depression? We say, I'm healing from my anxiety, because to me, healing is a lifelong process. It's a process. It's a journey. It does not have a period on the end. It's of a sentence. It is open-ended. And when I say that, it's because there are times in all of our healing journeys where we might be triggered by something and have this little flashback. And that's happened to me all the time. I kind of regress, I say, and I exhibit behavior that was maybe in my pre-healing or my pre-self-development work phases. But the difference is I now have the self-awareness to say, oh, I reacted that way. Let me take a step back and feel into why. Whereas before, I would have just gone down that rabbit hole and I would have been feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm flailing around. I have such anxiety. there is, it does not negate the work that you have done on your healing journey. If you have some regression, that is just the process of healing. It's like you take 5 steps forward and sometimes we take 2 steps back. I believe it's the same way with grief, and I can't speak from experience, but I know from clients that tell me it's not linear. It's not like, well, why aren't I over it? That to me is the most insulting thing. No one gets over a loved one that they've lost ever. It doesn't happen. But can we move forward? Can we take the necessary steps? Just like with our own emotional angst, can we step forward if someone has been abused, if someone has gone through a trauma of some type, and it's not grief, it's a different kind of trauma. Healing is a process, it's a journey, and it is a lifelong event. And it's something to really be proud of, because taking that step in healing is showing up for yourself. It's being so courageous. It's really having the guts, as I say, to jump into that muck and be willing to get really uncomfortable. No one likes to be uncomfortable as human beings. We want to do everything to avoid it. But that's where the crux of the work lies, when you're really willing to get in there and get uncomfortable. That's how it starts.
I always say the most courageous people in the world are those who are willing to face their stuff and heal.
I 1000% agree with that statement.
You know, yep. You hide from your stuff and you run across it your whole life. It's like you're carrying it like a huge backpack on your back.
And the sad thing is, it's that I feel that people hide it from other people because they worry so much about what everyone thinks. If we can get rid of that, if there were no judgment,
right,
maybe we'd take the time to go inward and realize, you know what? People aren't worried about you so much. They're dealing with their own stuff. And even if you think, oh, that person has the perfect fill in the blank job, marriage, what wardrobe, whatever it is, it's all external. It's all the stuff. And the stuff in my eyes just doesn't matter, because that's the stuff that goes away. This, as I know from experience, the soul part of us does not go away. When the physical body dies, I say this to you as we get ready to wrap up here. I remember sitting at my grandmother's funeral thinking not one person in her 102 years got up and spoke about her and said, when Reba was 52, she wore a size 4 skinny jeans. When she was 60, she was up a little bit into a size 6. Nobody talked about what my grandmother looked like, what she ate, what size jeans she fit into, how much money she made. They all talked about how my grandmother left them feeling, how my grandmother was such a presence for them. And I realized then that was all that mattered to me, that I wanted to live my life in such a way where, when you talk about leaving a legacy, what is that? Is it leaving money? Is it leaving your things? No, it's the feeling that you leave people. I guarantee you today, I'm going to go on my Facebook page and people will have written things about my gram. She died 4 years ago. She left a mark on people because of how she made people feel. She left a mark on me. And that's what it's really all about.
That's really what it is all about. Mm-hmm. And what is the Deb Levine tip for finding joy in life?
That's my big thing. And my keyword there is finding. I stopped trying to find joy. I used to try so hard to find joy. I would want to find it in other people. I'd want to find it in baking and eating because I felt like I could stuff it all down. Now what I realize is when I accept myself, when I'm really aligned and in the truth of who I am, which I know sounds like spiritual BS, but it's really what I believe, I'm being joy because I am so aligned. I show up as myself. No one can disrupt that. Being joy to me, not finding joy, but being joy means being at peace with who I am. And when I'm at peace with who I am, I can find joy anywhere because I am the joy then. I don't need to be around a person to give that to me. I don't need to be on a vacation. That joy is within me. And so it was finding.
Beautiful. I totally agree with that. That's beautiful. Thank you, Deb. Thank you. You know, when you stop trying to be all the things you thought you should be, you came to appreciate and accept who you truly are, your I am. Mm-hmm. Your joy lies in the opportunity your mediumship allows you to also guide others onto this path. And I love that you approach your calling to mediumship with such humility, gratitude, and awe. That is really special. I'm sure, it's so special. I'm sure many in our Grief from Rebirth audience now want to check out your soul wisdom services, and they surely join me in thanking you for this heartwarming, wise, and uplifting interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. And here's a reminder, everyone, that you can see the show notes and all Grief and Rebirth podcast episodes on ireneweinberg.com. And make sure to follow us and like us on social at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. As I like to say, to be continued. Many blessings, and bye for now.